This is Chris from Rvenge Performance. Today we're going to show you what's involved in putting a Toyota Denso Supra fuel pump in a Dodge Stealth or 3000 GT. We have a great candidate right here. This car wants to make about 400 horsepower, and so that's plenty within the limits of the Supra style pump. The factory pump is good for about 300 to 325, maybe 350 wheel horsepower if you hot wire them. So if you want to make a little more horsepower than that, you should really look into an upgrade. At RvengePerformance.com, we sell Aeromotive, we sell the Densos, we sell the Walbro Hellcat pumps, which are good for a little more horsepower, like 600 even on alcohol, 700, 800, 900 on gasoline. We can handle any fuel system you need for your 3000 GT or Dodge Stealth, but this is about as basic as it gets, putting a Denso pump in one of these because they had Denso pumps in the factory. And let's get right into it. Fuel line on these tanks is really easy to mess up the sender because it's not a swivel. So it's kind of best to take it loose down at the bottom because it is a swivel on the factory hard line here. And so what I like to do is get kind of a scissor situation going here. And I have a line wrench on the smaller one, but on the bigger one I'm just using the regular one. And now I can just squeeze them together with your palm like that, and that gives you a ton of strength. And once we back this swivel all the way out, we'll just be able to pull the sender out with the entire line. And we can either choose to break that line loose in a vise or just leave it alone. I'm probably going to leave it alone on this car. If it was my own car, I would break it loose in a vise because I'm sure I'd want to put a different fuel pump in it later. But I don't think this client's going to be changing it out like we are. And yeah, so that's kind of the key here. It's underneath the car. Once you get them loose, you can just grab a regular wrench or your fingers, and it's a little bit faster.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so now that we got this loose, you can see this whole thing's moving. That's fine. You'll lose some fuel out of here, and it's a good idea to just disconnect your car battery, so there's no way anybody's going to try to turn it on or crank on it. But we took the injectors out of this car already, so there's no pressure in here. So we should just get some drips. And this car is in excellent condition, but it is a little dusty, so the top of the fuel tank we cleaned off, and we'll want to clean this line when we get done just to make sure we're not getting dust in this fuel system. And sometimes going back and forth like that, when your fitting's just a little reluctant, cleans it up. Kind of the same process you can use on brake lines, but obviously you don't want to use a flame or anything to try to loosen up your fuel line. There's probably some people, you know, who have joined the great mechanic in the sky because of that, so don't do that. But this car is pretty clean, so we didn't have any trouble with this really. And I should have safety glasses on while I'm under a car, but wasn't thinking. Especially when you got fuel coming out. So this is what I was talking about. This is actually, this nut is part of that line. So if you try turning this, it's going to bend this line up. You can't get it, and then this whole sender has to be fixed or replaced. I tried initially to break this loose from here, but it didn't want to, so I quit before we really started bending something. But this line, you probably can't see it, but it's completely loose at the bottom now. You can hear that? So now we can take this whole thing out and just pull the line with us, and there's no harm to be done. We got our vent unhooked. We got our electrical wiring unhooked. This car's also getting a hot wire kit, so we're going to interrupt the hot wire and run an extra relay. But yeah, now all we got to do is take these 8mm bolts out. And again, this car is pretty clean, but I'm going to put a little bit of penetrating fluid on some of these. If you break these off, it's really difficult to fix because they're stud as part of the fuel tank. So if you got a really rusty car, I would lubricate these and just let it sit for a day or two. Acetone and ATF or PB Blaster. I mean, even motor oil will help a little bit. So just pretty much whatever you got. I know everybody's got their secret sauce. So yep, we'll be back. So we're working on this fuel pump assembly we got out of here. And luckily we have today a stock Denso pump to install. So they pretty much are a stock fitment, which is nice. So you don't have to cut the internal line in here. Because like on a really big pump like a Hellcat, you got to cut this line. But these actually fit just in place of the stock one. Really popular upgrade. we have to take this off, get this clamp off, and this ground piece, and some wires and things, and then this pump will just come right out. A lot of times these are super tight, and I'll actually grab a vice grip, try cranking them that way, and it's better than stripping out the Phillips. So we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're working on this fuel pump now that we have out, and we're putting a Denso pump back in, which is popularly known as the Supra pump. So this is actually pretty much a bolt-in scenario, but we do have to take these two wires off and this retainer mechanism here. So it's probably best to take these off first before we take the pump loose, so that it's not trying to wrestle around on us. But as suspected, I couldn't get these loose with a Phillips, so a lot of times I'll just take a vice grip. Use the impact driver too, but this usually works just fine. We'll get on that. Yeah, it takes a couple tries sometimes. Okay, being a little reluctant. Turn it the other way. There we go. See how tight that is? Probably not getting that out with a Phillips. We can also either take this ground strap loose at the pump or here. Let's aim for the pump. First of all, I think I need to get, I think these are a 6 or a 7, so we'll be right back. So this is 7, verified. Can't get to the back one just yet. Let's take this front one off. And there is a little lock washer on here you probably want to save. Got that off, and then this comes off. When you're working on fuel pump wiring, anytime you can use the stock stuff and it's adequate for your application, it's obviously safest, because the factory figured a lot more safety things than a layman might. So we got this broke loose with the vice grip, but now I can get it with the screw, or the screwdriver. And then there's the O-ring in here. Once we get this off, and there's this rubber retainer on the bottom. Been in there a long time, you know. Yep. Make sure you drop your ratchet on the floor. So I'll get that. It's all part of the process. So we'll take the ground off, and yeah, for some reason that's bigger. So I think we're gonna need that 8 we had. But you see this O-ring configuration is the same as we're gonna have on here once we transfer the pieces over and get this out. Yep. So the kit probably contains a new O-ring and such. Let's take a look. Install kit here. If this O-ring leaks, you'll have fuel pressure problems. So if you can put a new one on there, it's best. Somehow this bag is smarter than me.
Gotta raise my light right there.
I'm gonna cut my O-ring, but yeah, I might resort to that in a minute. This is done all wrong. But here we are. We got our O-ring. As you can see, there's also a spacer piece here. I don't think it's identical to factory. We'll have to see if we want to use this or not. Just kind of look at the parts that make the most sense here. Okay, we got this piece, so that goes on first. So we'll grab our new pump, put that on there, and our new O-ring. We'll put a little bit of oil on this. See, the assembly lube here we got should work. And then this will go on here, like that. And then one of these is an upper retainer. These aren't quite the same as the stock ones. I might peel this stock one off because it looks like it's going to fit a little better. Do you have a flat blade over there, Eli?
Right there.
So pry this off. Just don't break it, and you can tell it's not happy about being removed. And best not to have it fly across the room if you can help it. So let's see how that fits. So that fits real nice. And this O-ring is what seals against the pipe. And we want to take our ground strap off here. Okay. I think this might be a type of locking nut or something, so hold on to it. So that's that. So there's your original Denso pump. Probably can't read the numbers on that. Put it somewhere clean because this pump was good. And then we'll take this one out of its bag. We want to find the negative on here. See, that's a cross for positive and that's for negative. Got a dash there, so we want to make sure we get the polarity correct. Probably pumps backwards or not at all. If you don't, the ground is not as critical, but when you route these wires, you need to be super careful they're not chafing on anything, because it can cause a short or just open circuit once it cuts through, or I don't think it'll cause a fire just because there's not enough oxygen in the tank usually to support the right fuel ratio. That's why fuel tanks don't blow up that much. But let's not push our luck. I don't like the way that's coming around, so let's go back here. Just a good snug. Won't break the thing off. And now we can put this on last. That's fine. I want to remove the guard here for the pickup. A little bit stuck on there. Okay. And now we're going to want a sock. Will be a new sock with your pump, like this. So it clips onto here and here. And then there's a retaining clip. If I can get this on without fudging it. Right there. So this goes onto here. A little bit tiny. Some of them just push on, but this Denso one has got like a separate clip here. So I'm just sort of pushing on with the socket. Make sure it's good and tight, ain't coming off. Let's check this side a little bit. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, now we need the rubber booty. There's that little rubber spud looking thing that came off the bottom here. You know what I'm talking about. Goes in real nice. Thought it's a good fit on that O-ring. And we got this booty here. This makes them quieter and stuff. It's a good thing to have. On the bigger pumps, a lot of times you just sort of hose clamp them to the assembly. So this is actually a little nicer. But it's one of the nice things about running the Denso pump when you can. They're good to about 600 horsepower on gasoline. If you're running E85, you're probably going to go straight to the Hellcat pump, but this is pretty good for that. And this just goes back in. So very simple install. Just going to get on here. Again, I don't want that falling out. Should be good. And finally, we need to put our positive terminal on. That. And this is one of those things I was talking about. See how that's rubbing? I don't like that, so we'll just bend that up a little. But that's ground, so at least if it does cut through, it's, you know, just going to be more grounded basically. But especially on the hot wire, you can have a short. So that's that. And then we'll grab, I think it was 7 on this one. Just like that. Yep. Same thing. We'll tighten them enough they don't come loose, but don't break the pegs on the fuel pump. They're tiny. Okay. I try to grip it way up here when I'm working on something small, so I have less leverage. And then this just goes around here, just like factory. And then that's all safe. And so we now have one fuel pump ready to go back in the car. Here's that line we were talking about before. And again, a good way to get these loose now is to put this part in the vise and then turn this by hand. but I'm going to leave this alone because it's a client's car that's probably not changing their fuel pump much. And this doesn't leak right now, okay? It probably won't leak if we take it loose and put it back. I can't promise that because it's old. So if we leave this alone, we know it's going to be fine. So we'll just feed this back into the car and tighten it back up to the frame. When these go in the car, if you come over here, you have to be a little careful. The orientation of this matters, and you can tell it's correct because we have this tab here that the tank breather check valve goes on. But this has to go in and then or float. And if you are too rough on that float, you can damage them and your fuel gauge won't work. And then this is the low fuel light, that orange thing, that also needs to go in there carefully. And then you can kind of just feed this in. I might do that last. I think that's how we got it out. It's a little tight. So you just gotta watch as you put everything in that everything's happy. Nothing should take force to put in when you're doing this. Make sure you're not pinching your lines or anything like that. You can see here our line's in the way now, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that down there. Just like that. And make sure that we don't have anything in the way. And that should sit pretty flat. Now, you need to make sure too that all these little nubbins are sticking through. There's 3 of these. And if they're not, your gasket might have fell out of place, and that will make a fuel smell leak, and or if you brake aggressively or something, you can actually have fuel slosh out too. So, but this is looking pretty good. I just want to make sure that the hole here, this gasket, has that stud in it. So check all your holes, and you can replace that gasket if you want, but they very rarely go bad unless your tank sat outside or something for a long time. Yeah, I'm just making sure that the gasket is on the right side of the bolt and the bolt's going through the gasket. And we're pretty good. This nubbin needs to pull through a little bit more. So we're just going to pull this through. There, pulled right through. Make sure they're all pulled through. So see how that sits flat now? We're pretty sure that that gasket is in there perfectly if that sits completely flat and doesn't rock. And we don't have anything in the way. So now we just put these nuts in. It's a tiny little nut. I'd say if there's a torque spec for this, it's probably 4 or 5 foot-pounds, or like 48 inch-pounds. But just snug them up and go just a little more. It's a real bear if you break these off in the tank and you try to. There's ways to repair it, but it's a pain in the butt, so don't do it. There we go. So that's pretty much your fuel pump install when you're using a Denso pump. Very simple. Like I said, we're not done back here because we're going to run the hot wire kit. But I always like to get the pump back in as soon as possible because it's a fire hazard to have a tank open and you're just asking for dirt to get in there. But now that we're going to have this pump in here, we can go get lunch, take a break, because I don't have to worry about this catching fire while we're gone. So I hope that was useful information on our Dodge Stealth fuel pump swap today. If you need any work on your Dodge Stealth or 3000 GT, see us at rvengeperformance.com. We're taking full car builds now. We have a shop with a lift and not just transmissions, and we'll also do your whole transmission, take it out of the car, put it back, do whatever else you need. So again, see us at rvengeperformance.com.